The double entendre Bone Lake was billed as a horny horror, and while there is some spicy action, is the movie an effective entry in the horror genre? A couple's vacation at a secluded estate is upended when they're forced to share the mansion with a mysterious couple. A dream getaway spirals into a nightmarish maze of sex, lies, and manipulation, triggering a battle for survival. This opens with a sequence that is designed to make us squirm and wince, and it does. But then that violence and thrills, they just go on hiatus for a while and don't return until much later in the movie. What transpires in the interim is just a ton of psychological games and mind effery that attempts to create unnerving tension and strife amongst the guests. This has a limited cast, mainly only containing 4 characters for the vast majority of the movie. And then the setting, it's an isolated mansion that sits near a lake surrounded by forest. There's a certain amount of loneliness contained in the surroundings, but also immense privacy that would be desired for such a large home, where people could feel just the freedom to get a bit freaky out in nature and then not worry about voyeuristic creeps lurking in the shadows. Now, the story believes it's much more clever than it really is. The trajectory and supposed aha moments, they're not surprising. The actions and situations are telegraphed way in advance to us. And it's kind of a strange feeling, like the story wants to obscure many of the elements to make it more mysterious, but at the same time can't help itself from being blatantly obvious. So there isn't any mystery that exists. Now, despite this predictability, I did appreciate the actors' ability to convey their strife and their conflict believably. Their interactions come across as strained and fragile connections, and their emotions appear to be right at that breaking point, which could spell disaster for a relationship. Now, the dialogue, it isn't overly cheesy, but it's hard not to smirk at it a lot of the time just because even though the performances are engaging, the writing and the dialogue, they're just painfully shallow and basic. There's a seduction scheme at work, and we can all tell what's supposed to be happening. Conflict arising between couples because of attractions, and then a closeness that appears intimate. Had the plot taken more time to establish character backgrounds, maybe this would have been effective. But as it stands, it comes across as some desperate people trying to create a little excitement in their own lives by messing with the relationships of others. And it's so cringy the way the entire supposed seduction takes place, moving from something flirty to aggressively intrusive, almost to the point of assault. Not necessarily physically, but certainly emotionally and psychologically. For those looking for more of risque content in this, despite the claims of the movie, there's very little sex or skin involved. I mean, there is some, just not quite as much as you may expect. Additionally, there's also very little eroticism to this. The brief sex scenes we get, they're steamy, but the presentation likes to tease more than display. And even then, it doesn't draw out the sequences long enough to create effective desire or even obsession. The seductive aspect, it's noticeably missing from the storytelling, and avoiding just any connection with the brain to build that necessary sensual attraction. Now, the thing that saves this 94-minute movie from becoming just another one of the more recent, forgettable, mid-level thrillers is the final act. This is when the story and the action become unhinged. I mean, in a wonderful way. Despite the predictability of the lead-up, there is one reveal that I never saw coming. I mean, it's not massively consequential to the plot, but it is a nice and shocking surprise. And then from there, we get a bloody and gory romp of hide-and-seek. The pursuits, they're quick and dangerous, containing taunts and teases, and then some imagery that can create a bit of an in your throat. The makeup and the effects during the last act, they are brilliantly disgusting and shown to us in some great detail. I love that we actually get to see the ramifications of an attack also, not simply seeing an action and then having the aftermath hidden in some dark shadows. Here, we get the ick right up in front of us. The final 25-ish minutes are thrilling, full of suspenseful excitement, and also have enough complications to prevent it from becoming just a run-of-the-mill finale. Even though this segment is relatively short amount of the movie, especially considering all the time before that didn't contain any intense thrills, the energy and urgency we get at the climax works to redeem a bunch of the lackluster elements of the previous 70-ish minutes. I don't think the conclusion to this transforms us from meh to marvelous, but it does gain a lot more excitement and enjoyment, thanks to the shift in gears from limp psychological manipulation to all-out run-for-your-life suspense. The simple writing, it contributes so much to the obvious predictability, skimping on character depth in favor of attempted lusty looks. Even the sexiness of the storytelling is harmed by the basic plot development. Thankfully, a reasonable runtime and brutal final act redeem this from becoming mindless and ineffective drivel, but it can't catapult us into any realm that would be interpreted as awesome. This is fine for a one-time watch, but it's not clever enough, sexy enough, or even violent enough to be worth revisiting. There's a bunch of sex and nudity, profanity, and then a ton of violence. I give Bone Lake 3 out of 5 couches. So are there any risque horrors that you've seen that are great? I'd love to hear some recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.